Excel has hundreds of features. So when you want to use it for work, it can be overwhelming to know what aspects of Excel you should learn first. In this video, let me share the top 5 most important Excel features and use them to solve 5 real-world problems. You will learn how to use Excel tables, how to work with cell references, write formulas, create pivot reports, and make graphs. This is Essential Excel in 40 minutes. Let's go. This is the data that we are going to use for our Excel data analysis. This is the same data that we collected and cleaned with Power Query in the previous lesson of this free data analyst course. But I'm giving you a copy of this data as it is. So even if you have not done that lesson, you will be able to still follow along. So here I have got some fictional employee data set with lots of different columns. We have got employee ID, their name, gender, which department they work in, salary, salary bucket, start date, how much is their full-time equivalent or FTE, type of employee, where they work, tenure, and work type. Some of these columns come from my original data, others were generated in Power Query in the previous lesson. And what we are going to do is, while we discover various essential Excel features for data analysis, we are also going to answer these 5 business questions. Each of them are listed here. Feel free to check them out in the download file. But let's go to one question at a time. The first and foremost concept in data analysis with Excel is to structure your data so that it is in a position and structure that is suitable for data analysis. And in my opinion, the best kind of data setup for your data in Excel is to set it as a table. So here I have already set it as a table, but I'm going to show you how this data normally looks if you were to copy paste from a web page or a SharePoint place or a CSV or something. So I'm copying this and I'll make a new Excel file, Control N with that. And here I'm going to right click and paste it as values. So this is normally how we see data in Excel. And when we think about this, we are thinking kind of rows and columns, but all of these items are kind of individual cells in Excel. So one way to quickly structure this data and make sure that it is all together as one data set, not individual columns or anything, is by making it a table. You can do this by selecting any one cell and pressing Ctrl T, T for table, and it will immediately set up a table for you. It will give you this create table dialog, and you want to make sure that you enable my table as headers option if you have a header row like this. In most business cases, we will have a header row, so it's a good idea to set this up like that. And when you click OK, you're going to get a table. So here is my table. You can see that instantly my data looks a lot more accessible and pretty because tables give you a standardized formatting along with a clear header and some filters and all of that. Not only that, when you set it up as a table, you are telling Excel that this data is all together, so treat it as one piece rather than individual cells. This makes it easy for us to, for example, write any formulas or make any pivot tables or create any charts, because every time we do that, we can straight away talk to the table rather than individual cells. I'll explain more about all of that in a minute, but for now, this is a table. When you have a table, you will also have this table design ribbon through which you have got a plethora of options to format the tables, like how you want them to look and what behaviors you want them to have on the tables. So for example, let's say you like the table, but you're not a big fan of this blue coloring that is going on here. What we can do is, we can go to the table design ribbon. You must select a cell inside the table to access it. If you are outside, you won't be able to go into table design. So once you are in the table, go to table design. And from here, using the table styles, you can change to a different style. So for example, maybe a purple color would do. I can tap on that. You can also expand this to see that there are many other options for us in table styles. Likewise, you can also give your tables a name You can see that in the table design ribbon here in the corner, I have got a name. Right now this is called table 1, but I can give it a name that is more appropriate for my data. This is an optional but a highly recommended step for any time you're working with data in Excel. In fact, I almost always, every time I set up a table, I give it a name. So let's give this a table name. I'm gonna call this as staff. You can give it in capitals or small letters. And once you set up the name, that is the name through which Excel will address this data every time you work on this data. So here, this is a new file, remember, but if I go back to my original file, if I go to my table design, I will have staff table name as well. One thing that I want to highlight here is if you are bringing the data into Excel through Power Query, then Power Query automatically gives a table and sets up the name as well. So you don't need to do any of these things. Another reason why I highly recommend using Power Query for your data needs, so that you don't have to even do this step. You can automatically get the table and then go from there onwards. So here I have got my staff table, and let's take a look at our first business question. We want to explore the staff data by department and see some quick summaries. As our data is already in a table, when you have a table, you'll see that it is very easy to explore. In fact, even when you have very large amount of data, in this case, I think we have about 200 employees. When you have it in a table, if you start scrolling, you'll see that the column headers here in Excel, they will change to the table columns. So it's easier for us to know which column we are referring to, even when you're scrolling down. Normally the problem would be, it will say column F or column H, and you don't know what that is. With tables, that is not a problem anymore. But let's go ahead and filter this data so we can look at one department at a time. To add filters, you can go to the home ribbon and click on the sort and filter and click on the filter button. You can also use the shortcut Ctrl+Shift+L. This is one of those essential Excel shortcuts, and I highly recommend memorizing and using it often so that it becomes part of your muscle memory. So let's press Ctrl+Shift+L and have the filters on it. And again, as you can scroll, you'll see that the filter will also appear here in my heading area of Excel. So even when I'm further down on the page, I can immediately access the filters. So we're going to filter this just to, for example, legal department, and we can immediately see in the table who are our employees in the legal department and who are they, all the individual records. But if I want to know at this point how many people are in the legal department, I can also look at the status bar here and then see that 21 of 260 records found. So out of 260 employees that we have in the data, 21 people are in the legal department. Let's say you want to understand what is the total salary of the legal department, or what is the total FTE value of the legal department, or something like that. You could do it one of the two things. One thing is you can select the data, and again you can look at the status bar here and get some quick statistics. You'll see sum, minimum, maximum, average, etc. If you're not seeing all of them, you can right click on the status bar and you can enable other kinds of summaries for the data from Excel options here. Normally average and sum and min max would be available by default, but that is manual approach. You could also add in the table design a total row option. So here in the table design, you must be in the table and use this total row to add a summary row at the bottom of the table. Okay, so let's add this. Let's click on total row and we'll get a total. Right now the total row would be blank except for the very last one, which tells you the 21 people that we selected. We're going to select on this salary column and expand this little filter button here and change this to sum. So we can see $1.412 million is the total salary we pay in the legal department. For FTE, again, I'm going to sum it up. 19.5 is the total FTE. Now the beautiful thing with this total row is it is a dynamic value. If you change your filters, so for example, from department, if I go to legal to engineering, I'll get the total engineering salary. Likewise, if I clear the filter, the total row will be all the way at the bottom after 260 people. You can see the total salary for the entire data set, 19 million and 233 as the FTE, 260 as the head count. One trick here that I learned in a conference many years ago is, while the total row is helpful, it is always at the bottom, which means if I want to see what this total is, I'll have to scroll down all the way. So once you add a total row, you can select the entire total row, Control X to cut it, and go all the way and paste it at the top. This way the total row is actually at the top, but it still respects the table. So if I were to now filter, for example, marketing department, you can see the totals up top. These filters work very beautifully if you go even nesting, like for example, marketing, and then select mail. I'll see what the totals are for that. You can observe what formula Excel has written here. I'm going to explain formulas later as well, but you can see that it is using the subtotal formula to calculate these totals. Let's clear away these filters and let's save this file. And now let me show you another way of dealing with this tabular data using the filters. Of course, we can apply these filters, but let's say you always want to click and select a different department and understand the data. You can go to the table design and insert a slicer. A slicer is a visual filter that shows all the options to you as buttons, and you can click on a button to see what that is for you. So I'm going to insert a slicer and I'm going to select a department as the field and click OK. We're going to get various departments here as a slicer. A slicer will be a floating box. I'm going to move it to the corner here and just expand it out so we can see everything. Now let's select something like engineering. You can see what happens to these numbers. As soon as I tap engineering, I'll get the engineering totals here, FTE here. Likewise, I can select legal, marketing. If I want to select multiple items, you can click and drag to multi-select items that are together, or alternatively, you can hold down Control and select different departments. This is a very powerful and simple way to visually explore the data and understand the things, all without writing a single formula or doing anything. The whole thing is possible because we are using tables, one of the main essential features of data analysis. We are going to piggyback on the table features for the rest of this video and use it to answer some of these other business questions. Let's go to the next one. The next concept that we are going to explore is understanding and using various styles of cell referencing that are available in Excel. So here, for this example, we are going to build a simple as well as a little bit more complicated currency converter Excel calculator. So here I have got a setup for you. For example, let's say I have got an amount of 1,000 New Zealand dollars and I want to convert that into a foreign currency of, let's say, USD, which has an exchange rate of 0.61. To calculate the final value in USD, this is a simple process of multiplying this value D4 times exchange rate D5. And when you hit enter, you're going to get the value as 610 because 1000 times 0.61 is 610. When we are writing the formula, in our minds, we are thinking, I am multiplying D4 with D5. But what Excel really hears at this point in time is not those things. All it hears is take the value from 2 cells above, multiply it with 1 cell above. So this is why sometimes when people are learning cell references, they get tripped up because they don't understand the distinction here. Let's make this obvious by copying this formula, Control C, and pasting it somewhere else on the spreadsheet, Control V. It will come up as 0 because the cells above are blank. If I, for example, if I put 550 here, 59, I'll get the multiplication result as 29,500 because it's now doing the multiplication. So you see, even when we are writing the values, we are thinking New Zealand currency value times exchange rate. But Excel doesn't think that. It thinks 2 cells above and 1 cell above. And when you write the formula reference, you simply point to the cell and it writes D4 or D5. These things are obvious. D4 means column D, row number 4. D5 means column D, row number 5. What if I don't want these things to say 2 cells above, 1 cell above? What if I want this to always point to a specific value? For example, even when I paste it here, I want the multiplication to happen here. One way of doing this is you can lock the cell references. So you can go to the D4, place your cursor anywhere, either at the beginning or the middle, and press the F4 key, function key 4. And that's going to change the reference style to $D$4. What this tells Excel is now D4 is always going to be D4. It's not going to be 2 cells above or anything. The dollar sign ensures that the row and column references are locked. So you could say $D$4 times D5. Let's stop it here and copy this formula now and paste it here. You'll see that the result has changed because this time it's multiplying the 59 part, but for the first one, it says D4 here. So it's going to go all the way to that cell to get the value. So that's what the locking part does. You can lock one part of the equation or you can lock all parts of the equation. So for example, if I now lock the D5 as well by pressing F4 on that, then when I copy and paste it here, this value is going to be 610 because both of these references are pointing to the values there. So it's no longer paying attention to what is here because of that locking mechanism. You can lock these references in a different way. So for example, here is how the styling works. If I simply say D4, this is called relative reference. Everything is relative, both row number and column number. If I say $D$4, that's called absolute reference. That means neither the D column nor the row number 4 is going to change. Whenever you copy paste, it's gonna always refer back to the D4. You can also have a mixed style of referencing. This is where you have a dollar either in front of the D or D$4 in front of the 4. These are called mixed, and what they do is they lock the reference either to the column or the row based on how you want your calculations to happen. To better understand this concept, here I have got a better, more complicated currency exchange rate calculator. And what we are doing here is we have got various amounts in New Zealand dollars and we want to convert them into these currencies. For each currency, I have got the exchange rate here and I want to be able to do this. So here, the multiplication needs to happen like this. If I simply say C25 times that, that's going to work there. But if I want to now do it here, if I copy and paste, it's not going to work. This is because when I wrote this formula here, what we are thinking is C25, D23. What Excel here sees, it's here in one cell to the left, 2 cells above me. So when I go here, one cell to the left will be this value, but 2 cells above will be the text value USD, and it cannot multiply number with text, so we get value error. To fix this problem, you can see why this value is happening. We can lock the reference. We can say no matter where you are multiplying, always look at the column D, cell 23. So we can lock this as F4. And now if I copy and paste it here, I'll get the correct value for the $1,000 multiplication. So it says C26, D23. Let's copy it here and paste it there so we can get all the values. Now what about the INR multiplication? Let's copy this and paste it here and I'll get 372. Doesn't sound right because 1,000 New Zealand dollars, 51 exchange rate. I was expecting 51,000 something, but it comes up as 372. Of course, the dollar symbols are also wrong, but we'll worry about that later. This is because the D part is not locked. So it's always moving one cell to the left. So here, this one is pointing to this, whereas this one is pointing to 610. So it's multiplying 610 with the 0.61 to get here because of the locking. So our locking mechanism is not correct for this. The correct way of doing this is to use a mixed style of referencing. I'll show the example here. Feel free to study it and you will be able to understand it better. I also have other videos on the channel that explore more of this mixed and absolute relative style references. So do watch it if you want to learn more about this concept. So here what we want to do is we want to say C25, but always point to the column C. So we're going to lock this by pressing F4 twice. well, actually thrice, so that it becomes $C25 times, and then select D23 and again press F4 once, twice, so that it becomes $23. At this point it will be 610. I can copy this, select this whole thing and paste, and we will get correct values for every currency wherever that multiplication is. Ignore the currency symbols for now because we'll have to individually set the formatting. For example, to make this into rupee formatting, I can select all of these cells, right click, go to format cells, and from here change the number formatting, currency, symbol instead of dollar. I'm going to scroll down and select the rupee option. There we go. And you can do the same for GBP, EUR, and Australian dollar, this dollar anyway. So this is one way of doing. But we're not done yet. Starting with Excel 365, Microsoft added another powerful and elegant way of solving these kind of problems. And that's called a spill operator and array multiplication. Again, these things sound quite technical, but to be honest, they're really simple and more elegant way of dealing with these kind of problems in your data. So this is where I have got the same data, just changed the colors. And this time, in order to do the multiplication, what we are going to simply do is select equal to. We just want to take all these numbers and multiply them with all of them to get all the possible values. So you select this entire range times entire range up top. And when you hit enter, you're going to get all the multiplications in one go without you having to think and mental math all of these references. How elegant is this? This is called dynamic array behavior in Excel. It only works in Excel 365. So if you're using Excel 2016, 2019, or any other older Excels, then you won't be able to use this feature. But if you do have newer versions, you should start thinking in this direction. And again, this is a very in-depth concept in itself. We are going to further explore this in the free course in the next video. But I also have a dedicated video that explains this particular behavior and introduces a new feature called hash operator. So do check that video. It is showing up either on the card in the screen or in the video description below, so that you can learn more about these particular aspects. So that is how we can build a calculator, along with understand how to use various kinds of referencing in Excel. Let's go to the next one. Our third business question is bonus calculation for employees. And we're going to do two variations of this. And this time I'm going to introduce you to another kind of referencing. So the first kind is cell referencing that we saw in the previous part, where we are using the cell addresses. But remember, we have got all our staff data in a named table called staff. And when you have got data in a table, you can also use another kind of referencing called structural referencing. This is where you refer to your data by the names you have given to it. So this is going to make our bonus calculation a lot simpler. And we are going to do two variations of this. So we're going to go to the data table here, and I'm going to move this slicer, clear it out, and here we have got employees salary. Initially, we want to give everybody 5% bonus. So that means whatever the salary is, you're going to get 5% of that as a bonus. And we want to calculate this for all the employees, how many of employees there are. So with the table, this process becomes ridiculously simple. All you have to do is go to the end of the table, and here you can just type the column name as whatever you want. I want to give it as a bonus. So I'm going to type the word bonus here and hit enter. And now see the magic. As soon as you type enter, Excel is gonna add a column, extend the table style automatically and make it part of the table. So it's not really thinking this column is outside the table. Because you have put it in the adjacent cell, it's gonna bunch it together with the table. And that's not it. There is still more magic to come. The second part of this magic is you can go to the bonus cell, and here you can say equal to, and then we want to just 5% of the salary. So we want to refer to the cell here, H8. Make a note of the cell address here. This is the one. We are thinking this is going to be column H and row number 8. So it's going to be called H8. But because it's in a table, the moment you point to the cell, Excel is going to say @salary. It's not saying H8 because it doesn't matter where your table is, what the cell address is. You've already given it a name, staff, and each column has its own name. So to refer to the current column's value, you simply say and column name. So here it is salary, so it simply says @salary times, so star, and then we're going to say 5%. That's it. That's our bonus calculation. When you hit enter, the second part of the magic comes in. The same formula is applied consistently across the board for table, but each value is calculated automatically based on the salary that we have there. So we don't have to write hundreds of formulas. We don't have to drag the formula or anything. Because it's part of the table, any formulas you write will automatically extend all the way through. So this is another reason why I really love tables. This means there is no inconsistency when you're doing calculations. If you are applying a business rule like 5% bonus, everybody is going to get the same amount, and you don't have to do double checks and all of that because the way Excel tables work. And you can also see here there is an autocorrect option that says I am automatically creating the entire calculated column for you. I suggest you leave it without messing with that. So this is our first bonus, and let's study this formula once again. It is saying @salary times 5%. If you want to have this 5% in an input cell, you can also, for example, this is a made up scenario, so I'm going to move it here and I'm going to put bonus 1, that's 5%. Let's put some yellow color in that cell so we know what that is. This is S3 cell, and here I can take out this and then say S3 to point to that cell and make sure it is absolute by pressing F4, so it's locked to S3 all the time. When you hit enter, it's now calculating, but the bonus percentage comes off S3 cell. And if you change your mind, let's say you want to be a bit more generous, you can put 10% there and everybody's bonus will recalculate to 10%. So this is one kind of bonus calculation. Now let's add a little bit of twist to it. We have all worked in various companies and we know that the bonus policy is never this simple. If anything, it is way more complicated. So let's add a bit of twist. Let's say the bonus depends on how long you have been in the organization. So for the sake of adding a layer of complexity here, let's say we want to have bonus based on this criteria. If you have worked under 3 years, then you're going to get 2% bonus. 3 to 5 years of work experience, you've got 5% bonus. And if you've been in the organization for longer than 5 years, then you get 10% bonus. So how are we going to do this? This is where Excel offers various kinds of formulas that help us do these calculations easily. We are going to use the if formula to solve this problem. Again, with the if formula, you could do many variations of this. So initially, I'm going to show if formula, but I will also introduce a more powerful alternative called ifs function and how to use that. And Excel also has other options as well. So here, I'm going to move this thing a little bit to the side, and then we're going to call this as bonus 2. And we are going to make everything part of the formula, but you can also use the input cells to define the 2, 5, and 10% as different values. So here what we are going to say is we want to write the conditions like if your tenure is less than 3%, 3 years, then you're going to get 2%. So we're going to say if point to the tenure cell at the right tenure less than 3, then your bonus is 2%. If that's not the case, then we're going to check the next condition. So because it's another set of conditions, we'll need to write one more if formula. If and point to the same tenure again, this time check for 5. So if it is under 5, then you're going to get 5%. If neither of these are true, that means you're more than 5. So you're going to get 10%. So this is how we can do that. That will tell us the bonus percentage. So if you press enter now, you're just going to get the percentage value in number representation. But we want to multiply this with the salary here. So @salary. And we'll get the bonus, but now you can see everybody's bonus is different. So for example, here is somebody who worked for 5.76 years. They're going to get 10% bonus, 80,000 salary, $8,070 bonus. Whereas someone else who has worked for like 2.64 years, they're only going to get 2% bonus. So this is one way of doing. Like I said, you could use if formula, but recently Microsoft also added a alternative to the if formula called ifs formula. When you have to write multiple conditions, you can use that. So we're going to do bonus 3, which is exactly same as bonus 2, but with a different formula. And this time we'll say ifs, and this is basically logical test and value. So here we're going to point to the tenure less than 3, 2%, and then tenure less than 5, 5%. And the last one is, we don't need to check for this, because if neither of this is true, then it has to be 10%, but it doesn't offer like a default or else option. So we are going to usually write by saying true and then say 10%. Again, if you hit enter, you're going to get the percentages here. We'll need to multiply this thing with the salary value, and you will find that the calculations kind of match, but this one doesn't write multiple if formulas and nest them inside. It's all in one go. So this is how we can use the structural references inside the table to simplify the formula writing. No matter where the formula is, it's always the same logic, and there is no cell address business anywhere. So it's very easy to read and easy to understand. If you build this bonus calculation and then you hand it over to your colleague Tracy, she can also pick it up and use it, because there is no complicated mechanism here. So this is why I highly recommend using tables and working with the structural references for your data. Let's go to the next one. Our next question is to understand the department level details by creating a quick summary report. And for this, we are going to use pivot tables. Pivot tables are one of those essential features in Excel when it comes to data analysis. And that's why I wanted to introduce them to you in this video itself. I do have a follow-up video both on Excel formulas as well as Excel pivot tables, where we are going to go much more in depth into these topics. But for now, let's make a quick pivot report out of our department data, all the staff data, and then understand the process of creating pivot tables and how to use them. Let's go. So here I have got the data, and what we want is we wanted to quickly generate a department level overview. So here I can go select any cell in the data and either go to the insert ribbon and find the pivot table options right here, or I can also go to the table design ribbon, and there it will say summarize with pivot table. So pivot tables are, think of them as a quick way to get the report. Let's make one, and then it all makes sense to you. So to do this, we can just select any one cell, go to the table design and click on summarize with pivot table. For now, we're just going to click OK, but in my pivot tables video, which is going to come up after this formula video, where we're going to understand what these things do and how to use more advanced features of pivot tables. Just for now, we're going to click OK. So let's click OK, and it will create a new worksheet for you, a new sheet in the Excel file, and set up for the pivot tables. So like I said, pivot tables are like a quick reports out of your data. And the way to build them is you will have an area to create the pivot report. And on the right hand side here, usually you will have a pivot table fields option. And we are going to use that to create this. Again, some of this will seem confusing if you have never used pivot tables before, but the first time you do it, it will all make sense very quickly. So what we want to do is, we want to see for each of our departments, how many people are there, what is the average salary, what is the total salary, how much is the total FTE, and what is the total bonus, all the numbers that we got in our data. So here in the employee pivot table field list, I'm going to pick the department and drag and put it into the rows area. Whatever you put into the row area, it's going to generate one row for each of those items. So when I put this here, I'm going to get one row per department. So here you can see each of our departments are appearing once, and they're automatically arranged in the alphabetical order. So next up, we're going to take something like employee ID. We want to count how many IDs are there. Drag and put it into values, and that's gonna, because it's a text alphanumeric field, it's gonna count the number of employee IDs in each department, and you can see the head counts clearly here. So for example, you can see product management has 29 people, whereas marketing has 12 people. Next up, we are going to take salary and put it here. Salary being a number, it automatically adds the number up and it gives you the total values here like that. You can see that these numbers look really big without any currency formatting, but I can right click on any one of these numbers and go to number format, and from there set up the currency formatting. I don't think we need decimal points here, so I'm going to take that out and click OK, and we'll get a nice currency formatting with the same $19 million total value at the bottom. Next up, we are going to also want to see the total average salary. So not the total value, but just how much is the average of the salary in the accounting department. So we're gonna go back to the pivot table fields again, take the salary and drop it once again. The second time also it's gonna give you sum, but this time I'm gonna right click on this number and then say summarize values by average. So you can actually choose different kinds of summaries. You can count, average, max, min, product, etc. We're going to go with average. That's the average values, and again right click number format and apply the currency formatting once again, so we can see the averages by currency values. Next up, we're going to take FTE and put it here, and we can see the total FTE. So even though we have 260 employees, only 233 full-time equivalent because some people work part-time. Let's say I'm looking at all of this. We can also add bonus information, but I'm not adding that for now. And your boss says, okay, this all looks good, but how does this information look like for our Hyderabad employees or for our remote location employees or for our Wellington employees? So I wanted to filter this entire report just for a specific location. You could do one of the two things, and I'm going to show my preferred way of doing it, which is I'm going to select the work location, right click on it and add as slicer. So previously we saw the slicer on a table, but now we are adding a slicer at a pivot table level. And it's going to give you all the locations where we operate: Auckland, Chennai, Columbus, Hyderabad, Seattle, Wellington, etc. And from here I can pick anything. So I can click on Hyderabad and I can instantly see how many people are working in Hyderabad, what is the salaries, average, FTE, etc. I can go to Columbus, I can go to Chennai, Auckland, Wellington, or I can clear the filter using this filter button and I'll see the entire report. So this is the first way of doing. Alternatively, you can also take the work location and put it into report filter area here, this one. And when you do that, you will have a filter button up top. From here, I can select something like Hyderabad to see it. You'll see that when you select that, this also gets highlighted. So they both work in the same way, but one of them is kind of like a static version that sits on the top. I like the slicers because they're a bit more dynamic and playful. So let's say you want to use the slicers, you don't want to use this filter. You can select this field here, drag and drop it outside to remove. Alternatively, you can also click on this little arrow here and then say remove the field to take it out from the pivot table. We can use pivot tables to create many more complicated data analysis and quick reporting out of your data. We are going to further and fully explore pivot tables in the upcoming video of this free data analyst course. For now, let's go to the next question. The next business question that you want to understand is, let's say you have all of these employees and you want to understand whether there is any difference in the salaries paid to male versus female employees. And we have got all the data here. One way of exploring this data and quickly getting a sense of how the numbers are is by using a feature called box plot. So if you go from your home ribbon to the insert ribbon, you'll find that there are lots of different charting options available in Excel. And we are going to further explore many of these options in upcoming videos. But for now, we are going to use this particular button here. It's called statistical graphs. And from there, you will find the box plot. A box plot plots all the values in a box diagram. So let me explain what this is by first creating it. Once you see it, it kind of makes sense, but I'll give you more explanation after that. So we're going to select the salary column first without considering the gender or anything. And then go to insert, click on this and use the box and whisker plot. You get a graph like this. I'm going to cut this, Control X, and add a new worksheet and paste it there. So we can actually explore this a bit more here. Let's size this and kind of arrange it like this. So this is a box plot, and what it depicts is your entire total salary range is given by this box. So here, this is the highest salary, 120K, and that is the lowest here between some 20 to 30, 40, so around 28 or something like that. So all the people's salaries are spread between these two lines, and the middle, this box area here, what this signifies is it is the middle half of the data. So if you were to arrange everybody and cut them into 4 parts, first 25 percentile of values, 25 to 50, 50 to 75, and 75 to 100. So all the data is chunked into 4 parts. Then this box here gives you the middle half of the data, and that line is the midpoint of the data here. So you can kind of see that the people are spread almost evenly, and the middle box gives you a sense of where the middle half of the population or the data is. There is also a faint X mark there that shows the average salary of your entire data. So this box and whisker quickly helps us when you have 200 values or 500 values to understand where everything is and how they are spread. Are there any extreme values and all of that in one quick go. So this is the value for everybody. Now let's say I want to understand this for gender. What we can also do is in the data while selecting the salary, so you can select an entire column by kind of pointing on the header and clicking when the cursor turns into the black arrow to select the entire salary. So once the salary column is picked, you can hold down Control and select the gender column. So this way you pick both salary and gender. And now if you go to insert and click on this little thing and add a box and whisker, you can make boxes for each of the gender groupings. So we have got 3 different genders, female, male, and some missing values that need to be checked. So that's why there is need to check here. And I'm going to cut this Control X and paste it here as well. So we can kind of see what kind of salary spread is there between male and female. For now, we can ignore the need to check points because there's only few people with that. But you can see how the distribution is a little bit different between male and female. For example, the female data is a bit tightly packed compared to male. The male middle is spread a bit more there, but female is tightly packed. And even the median and the distance between this and that, you can see that this half here is smaller, this quarter is smaller than that quarter there for female. So this tells you a different story of your data by looking at like this. And here is a pro advanced trick. Once you have set up these box plots, if you have a slicer on the table, in this case we do have a slicer, we have the department slicer if you remember. I'm going to cut this slicer, Control X, and put that slicer right here, Control V. And now if you see, if you slice this data, if I go to legal, I am seeing the box plots for the legal department alone. All the employees, male and female. Likewise, engineering, business development, product management. So this is why using tables and using all of these additional features makes it super easy for us to visually explore the data and understand so much more about our information through Excel. We are going to further explore all of these individual bits, that is formulas, pivot tables, and charts in the upcoming lessons in this free data analyst course. Do watch the other videos in this free data analyst course series. The links are available in the video description below. Thank you so much for watching and learning from this video. Stay awesome.